Good afternoon and welcome back from lunch. I guess we're all ready and fired up for workshop 2. Can we have everybody taking their seats so that we can get on with workshop 2? Kindly take your seats. If there are any others in the foyer, they should please enter and take their seats so we can get on with it. Okay, great. I enjoyed my lunch. I don't know about you. Trust you all enjoyed your lunch too. Okay, so that's great. So in Ghana, we're used to a lot of spices in our food. So I had to carry with me from Ghana. I was warned that you may not find the Kenyan food as spicy as you would like. So I brought my own spice. It's a pepper sauce. It's called shito. So shito is pepper in Ghana, one of the languages spoken. But yeah, it's generally accepted across all the known by virtually all the languages. So it's shito. So I brought my shito and I put a bit of that by the rice that looked like jollof. So the rice that's like yellow, the yellow one, so we call it jollof, which is the source of a battle between Ghana and Nigeria. Yeah, whose jollof tastes better. So I went for the Kenyan jollof and I put the spice by it, and it went down quite well. So just so you know, except you're not into spices. All right, so we're getting on with the workshop 2, and to start with a keynote, I would want to invite Commissioner for the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Honorable David Wright. A round of applause to him. I like that. I like the cheer from the back.
Good afternoon. So I'm responsible for keeping you awake after lunch. That is going to be my job today. We're going to have some fun. So as was mentioned, my name is David Wright, and I am a commissioner from the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I'm quite excited, actually, to be here with you this week, and I'd like to thank the summit organizers for giving me the opportunity to participate in my second U.S.-Africa Nuclear Energy Summit. Last year, 2023, was in Ghana, as you've heard, and it was very informative. It was a lot of fun, too. Knowing the organizers like I do, I'm sure that this summit's already started. It's even better, and it's going to be even better. So congratulations and thank you, Alicia, for everything so far. You know, the session earlier this morning that was moderated by Shakur Walker that took a look back at the 2023 summit was actually an excellent way to set the scene for our time together in Kenya. And I'm particularly pleased to be here to build on the successes of the last summit and to share some thoughts on stakeholder engagement this afternoon. Before I get started, though, I'd like to thank the Kenyan government, the United States Department of Energy, the U.S. Embassy, and everyone else who's been involved in coordinating this event, for putting together such an impressive agenda and focusing on what are some really key issues facing the nuclear community today. This is my first time in Kenya, and I'm excited to experience Nairobi, see some old friends, and make some new ones while I'm here this week. Today I'm going to be sharing with you what's going on in my home country in terms of regulation and our efforts in stakeholder engagement, a critical activity, by the way, particularly as we see interest in advanced reactors continue to grow. As a regulator, it's imperative that we engage stakeholders to ensure they understand how regulators are prepared to license and inspect these often first-of-a-kind reactor designs, and how we're going to do that in a way that ensures that safety is the number one priority. As many of you know, the NRC is an independent safety agency that regulates the peaceful use of nuclear technology in the United States. This includes reactors, as well as things like medical isotopes and industrial sources. The NRC and its predecessor, the Atomic Energy Commission, have more than 60 years of experience regulating the world's largest nuclear power program. Over that time, the industry has changed considerably, requiring the NRC to adapt how we license and oversee nuclear power. As the industry continues to evolve, it's important that we identify enhancements to our processes while continuing to fulfill our nuclear safety and security mission. For example, the NRC is having pre-application engagements with more than 15 vendors right now, working on an array of different small modular and advanced reactor designs. We've also engaged with industry groups, research organizations, government agencies, national laboratories, and international counterparts to maintain awareness of these new technologies and understand potential regulatory needs that will jump at us. To ensure we're ready to regulate the full spectrum of new reactor technologies, the NRC has made considerable progress in developing a technology-inclusive, risk-informed, and performance-based licensing framework for advanced reactors and SMRs. This new rule that we call 10 CFR Part 53 aims to strike a balance between flexibility and predictability by providing clear performance-based requirements and allowing vendors to propose unique approaches to demonstrating the safety of their design. The Commission also updated our requirements for emergency preparedness, allowing alternatives for SMRs and other new technologies in recognition of their smaller footprint and potential hazard. This is also a risk-informed approach, and it allows more flexibility than the traditional one-size-fits-all approach to emergency planning that we've used previously. As our principles of good regulation tells us, we must keep in mind that independence does not mean isolation. The NRC's business is the public's business. Therefore, in all that we do, it's important for us to be clear about our role. The NRC provides independent oversight, making decisions exclusively to protect public health and safety and not for economic or political reasons. We conduct our work transparently, providing key information through a comprehensive website, open meetings, and a vast online database. In fact, in a typical year, the NRC conducts about 800 public meetings. This openness allows the public to see, understand, and participate in NRC decision-making, contributing to public confidence in the safety and security of nuclear power in the United States. Engagement with interested stakeholders, both domestically and internationally, is key to the success of our regulatory efforts. I strongly support this year's summit focusing on this important topic too, because no nuclear power program can succeed without public confidence. As I mentioned earlier, the NRC holds approximately 800 public meetings a year. That's a lot of meetings. We do this because we want to provide opportunities for the public to comment on proposed changes to our regulations, licensing actions, and other important activities that impact the direction of our work. Some meetings are held at our headquarters outside of Washington, but we hold many more meetings in communities around the country. Sometimes these meetings are held at one of our 4 regional offices, but we also hold meetings much closer to the public than that. For example, near a reactor site. In 2022, we even held a commission meeting in the Navajo Nation, which is the largest indigenous reservation in the United States. In fact, I didn't realize this until I went there, but it's larger than 10 U.S. states. I've had the opportunity to participate in many public meetings, and I can say from firsthand experience, they are critical for me as a commissioner, but also for the NRC as a whole, to demonstrate our commitment to transparency and our genuine interest in hearing the public's view. It's not enough to simply say that communication is important. We have to show it. Active engagement with our international partners is equally as important. Therefore, and similar to my colleagues and predecessors on the commission, I'm a strong proponent of international engagement. In 2014, the Commission issued an international policy statement which reinforced that international activities are integral to the NRC's mission and directly supports U.S. foreign policy objectives as NRC's domestic mission. We also have an international strategy for 2021 through 2025. Our overall goal is to foster and maintain collaboration with international counterparts and multilateral organizations to positively influence global and domestic nuclear safety and security. You can view our policy statement and our international strategy on our public website, which you can easily find by just Googling NRC International Programs. International cooperation is vital to the success of the NRC's critical domestic safety mission, too. This cooperation helps us to learn from one another, ensures timely sharing of operating experience, and advances global nuclear safety, security, and non-proliferation goals. The NRC's regulatory partnerships are critical to the continued high levels of nuclear energy safety, particularly given the interest in new and developing technologies. I believe that engagements such as the dialogue we're having this week allow regulatory partners and other stakeholders to share and discuss valuable information regarding institutional safety and security priorities that will help to shape all of our domestic programs. With these goals in mind, the NRC is engaged in a wide range of bilateral and multilateral activities that contribute to enhancing the safety and security of nuclear activities worldwide. This engagement enables us to share best practices, lessons learned. It deepens our understanding of different perspectives and ensures we don't make decisions in a vacuum. To facilitate this information exchange, we have more than 50 bilateral agreements with regulatory counterparts in almost every country with a power reactor program, and many that use nuclear technologies for other purposes. I'm very pleased to note that in a few weeks at the IAEA General Conference in Vienna, the NRC will sign a new bilateral technical agreement with the Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority, our first such agreement. If you're interested, if you're interested in creating a safe nuclear power program, we would love to come and walk alongside of you. These bilateral agreements facilitate technical exchanges, regulatory information sharing, personnel exchanges, and regulatory assistance. And these exchanges contribute to nuclear safety and security worldwide. I look forward to the fruitful cooperation between the NRC and KNRA under this new agreement. We've already had the opportunity to identify a few priorities in some areas for cooperation, one of which is working with KNRA on stakeholder engagement activities to collect views from the members of the public and professional groups that that will be working under their draft regulations on nuclear safety. Given all the reasons I've outlined already, we believe this is an excellent activity to start to explore under our new bilateral agreement. This engagement with Kenya is just one example of the NRC's international capacity building activities. The goal of this work is to support other regulators as they build their oversight programs. For example, we can assist regulators in preparing to review a license application, offer suggestions on regulatory decisions, and help train inspectors. These are long-term partnerships that we build to endure, to last, independent of what type of reactor a country ultimately chooses. We do not tell our regulatory counterparts how to run their program, because there is no one-size-fits-all approach to this. Instead, we provide support to our counterparts as they continue developing their regulatory programs, emphasizing the importance of those programs being independent, well-resourced, and technically competent. This is an important responsibility as we all share the goal of safe and secure use of nuclear power. We're pleased to partner with African regulators on capacity building, and I will note that we are actively involved in assisting African regulators in their stakeholder engagement activities through our Regulatory Sources Regulatory Partnership, or RSRP. The RSRP is focused on helping member country partners strengthen regulatory control over the use of radiation sources. Under the program, within the past year, the NRC has worked with our regulatory partners in Mauritania, Zambia, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, in an effort to move forward projects in their countries on public engagement, to increase stakeholder knowledge on the use of radiation sources and the role of the regulator. We view these stakeholder engagements as critical to the success of a regulator, both for those considering a nuclear energy program and for those utilizing radioactive material for industrial, academic, or medical purposes. In summary, the NRC stands ready to continue supporting African partners and other countries interested in deploying nuclear power programs in the future, and that includes in the key area of stakeholder engagement. You know, we've licensed over 100 large light water reactors in the United States, and we stand ready to share the experiences gained and lessons learned along the way. We've also recently licensed a salt-cooled advanced reactor and a small modular light water reactor. And as I mentioned earlier, we're in pre-application discussions with about 15 other potential applicants. We're working to ensure our partners can benefit from our licensing experience so that they don't need to reinvent the wheel. But we also recognize that some of our partners will want to do things maybe differently than us. And that's okay. It's okay. I cannot overemphasize the importance of stakeholder engagement at every phase of nuclear development. Open, transparent communication creates and builds trust and confidence. A well-established relationship between regulators and the many stakeholders impacted by their work ensures continuous, productive dialogue that maximizes efficiency and minimizes misunderstandings. I'd like to conclude by thanking you once again for attending this summit this week and for letting me come to it. I look forward to more very interesting presentations like the ones this morning, further panel discussions and informal conversations on the margins of the event this week. Again, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the week's program.
Thank you very much. So I also got something. It's like, yeah. Thank you so much. All right, a round of applause to right. So we're now getting into the stakeholder engagement to provide the facilitator. Is going to be Delia Lockridge. She's the group leader, nuclear operations and licensing senior R&D staff, innovative nuclear reactor development engineer. She's also from Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Then let's give her a round of applause as she makes her way here.
So good afternoon. Hi. Just checking to make sure you're still awake because lunch was really good. I'm going to check the presentation. I think I'm supposed to point here. In a minute. Stand by. So while he's queuing up the presentation, I will mention that this is the third African nation that I've had the opportunity to visit, and I'm overwhelmed by the graciousness and hospitality that we've received thus far. So thank you for hosting, and more to come. So, are we ready? Ready? Okay, good. So, normally I float when I speak. It's difficult for me to stand in one place, so you might see me gripping the podium, and that's because I'm supposed to stay still, so please oblige me. But I will start from the last week of July to about the second weekend in August. I was glued to the television set. But I wasn't the only one. The much anticipated Paris Olympics were on, and the entire world was watching. Now, I watched a little bit of swimming because I just learned how to swim about 5 minutes ago. I watched a little bit more gymnastics because I used to turn flips. Now, we're not going to talk about how long ago that was, but I promise you I was able to do some of those backflips and things. I won't try that now because I might end up in the hospital. But the events that I really, really wanted to watch, I can be mobile now. The events that I really, really wanted to watch were the track and field and running events. I mean, I love running. Okay, no, I don't love running. I love how I feel after I run. After the run is over and it's done, I can check it off, and I feel like I've done something that day. So I watched all of the track and field events, and they were amazing, amazing to see. And I lived vicariously through them and was able to make some connections between all of the running events and what's happening in the nuclear industry. And it's not a hard parallel. I'm going to set this down for a second. If you think about it, well, okay, I'll step back for a second. I actually qualified to go to the Olympics this year as a spectator. Yeah. Not as a runner. I'm not that fast. I'm not that fast at all. But I love celebrating people doing great things. I love supporting people doing great things. And Africa is doing another great thing. They are taking intentional steps forward to increasing their engagement in the nuclear energy sector, and that is worth celebrating. Now, another running analogy, it's not going to be a 100-yard dash. It's not going to be a sprint. This journey that you are on, it is a full marathon. And as I've done a couple of those, I can tell you that it is hard, it is intensive, but it is so well worth the journey. I can also tell you that when you're on this journey, exploring your capabilities in nuclear technology, you're not going to be by yourself. There are going to be people along this journey with you, and those are your stakeholders. So during the time that I have, I'd like to talk with you about stakeholder engagement, and Commissioner Wright has already alluded to its significance and its importance and its impact. So I'd like to expand on that for the time that I have with you today. And again, this is an interactive session, so you can find the QR code that you can phones out, and scan the code and follow along for some of the questions so that we can move through this quickly. All right, so some of the things that we're going to talk about are how we can involve stakeholders in the decision-making process. And that, as Commissioner Wright said, at every phase, at every stage of the process. We also have to build public confidence and trust. And that, again, is something that's going to take time. I mean, if you think about some of your friendships, some of your long-term friendships that you have, those didn't happen overnight. It was repeated engagements, conversations at dinner, conversations in people's homes. You establish that relationship and that confidence and that trust in that person. The same thing applies here. And then we're also going to talk about strengthening communications among the key organizations, many of which are present in the room. And I echo Das Duncan's charge to each of you to meet some of the people that are in the room, to build your networks and establish relationships for the long term. So, for stakeholder engagement, oh, I didn't do that. There's a ghost in the machine. Okay, so for stakeholder engagement, the first thing you need to do is identify who your key stakeholders are. We want to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So a stakeholder is a person, an individual, or a group of individuals that have a vested interest or a commitment to whatever project or decision that you're about to make. Sometimes those stakeholders will be internal to your organization. Your manager, your engineer, your technician, the student at a university. Sometimes those stakeholders will be external to your organization. For example, the public, which can be one of the strongest stakeholders that you will encounter. Who is not a stakeholder? There's been some discussion as to whether or not competitors are actually stakeholders. Your competitors care about what you're doing from the standpoint that they want to know how to move and to react, maybe sometimes to counter what you're doing so that they can hold more of the market. But the competitor is not going to be in the room while you're making the decisions. They're not going to have a voice when you're making those decisions. So for today, I would say that a competitor is not a stakeholder in this setting. But your general public, your managers, your bosses, your employees, all of those can be considered as stakeholders. Now that you know who the stakeholders are, how do you get them involved and engaged in the decision-making process? I went backwards. Okay, how you get them involved in the process. Now, each stakeholder has a different interest. There's a certain reason why each of them are interested in what you're doing, the decision that you're about to make. Some of it may be political motivations. Some of it may be job opportunities. But whatever reason that stakeholder is engaging you, you need to understand how to craft your message. You want to make sure that the message or information that you're sharing with your stakeholders is the right message. It's not too technical if you're speaking with someone who doesn't even know what a nuclear power plant is, but it's not too low level for someone who's experienced in the field and understands and appreciates the technical concepts. So you have to, again, build that long-term relationship or get to know your stakeholders so you can have a good appreciation for what types of information you need to share with them. And you also need to have an understanding of how frequently you provide that information to the stakeholders. One of my managers, we had a meeting every 2 weeks where I updated him on the progress of a project that I was working on. Any more than 2 weeks, he thought that there was something wrong. Like if I showed up at his office and it wasn't for our regularly scheduled meeting, he's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And so I tried to keep to our schedule, and I only interacted with him as my stakeholder on those occasions unless there was an emergency. But I built that relationship and that understanding with him because we worked together, we spent time together. He communicated very well what his expectations were with regard to information and its frequency. And also timeliness. Again, if there was something that I knew, some information that I needed to share with my manager that would help him make a timely decision, I didn't wait necessarily till the next meeting, especially if I knew he had a judgment coming. So all of these factors are important when you're trying to determine what information, how often the information needs provided, and if there are any other circumstances why you need to provide that information to those stakeholders. And it's going to be different for every stakeholder that you engage. So stakeholders, again, you'll have them at various levels in your organizations. They'll have various levels of influence in the community. Some of them may be mayors or part of the ministry, and you need to understand the level of influence that they have, not within just their community, but the community at large, because your message is going to be impacted by that. So for example, if you have a high-ranking official that is about to deliver a speech, but needs some information about schedule, what is the timeline or the schedule that you're on for this major project? He or she is a high interest, high influence person. So you need to make sure that you engage them often and engage them in a way that keeps them satisfied with the level of information that they have. You may have someone that's in the general public. Let's say a school teacher that is starting a session on nuclear energy in her class. Now, she may not have the same high-level ranking position that the mayor of the town or the CEO of a corporation does, but she does have customers, the students in the class. And this is an opportunity to share information with them about nuclear energy and nuclear technology that they don't have. And again, these are our future. These children are our future. So we want to make sure that the right information gets to the teacher and that we're on standby to provide any additional information to her or him in that setting. So the graph that you're looking at right now is really a gauge that you have to play with based on the audience that you're delivering the message to. So earlier I talked about who your stakeholders were, and now I'm going to give you an opportunity to identify some of them. I mentioned a couple of them, but if you would go on to Mentimeter, it'll begin to build a word cloud of some of the stakeholders that you already identify or already know in your community, okay? So government, and if somebody puts the same answer, the word gets bigger, so don't be afraid of putting the same response as someone else, but come up with different ones if you can. Licensees, the public, policymakers, community investors, very good, small business owners, absolutely. I'll touch really quickly on the small business owners. My colleague and friend Gail Hauk mentioned that I worked at the Vogtle 3 and 4 nuclear construction project, and there were almost as many businesses that grew around the surrounding area where the plants were being constructed. You go to work every day, but you have, other needs that you need to take care of. You need to do your laundry, you need to put gas in your car, you need to eat. So as the nuclear power plant grew, all of these other small businesses grew in the community. So when you're talking to your stakeholders about economic opportunity, you're not just looking at what the nuclear power plant can provide. You're also looking at the benefit to the entire community because it gives entrepreneurs a chance to grow the community and make a name for themselves. Wow, that's a lot of words. So youth organizations, other government agencies, religious leaders, absolutely, municipalities and the regulator, educators. Excellent responses. So how do you build confidence with the general public? particularly when you're talking about nuclear. So we'll start off with another quick exercise. Tell me some of the things that you have heard about nuclear energy. One word, two word phrases. I'll start off with one. Nuclear is clean energy. Some of you may have heard some other things about nuclear. So if you would just begin to type in some of the responses that you've heard when you're engaging the public or your friends when talking about nuclear energy. I'll share another one. My sister, when I started off working for a nuclear vendor, she asked me if I was going to glow because I was working at a nuclear facility. And I said, no, I'm not going to glow. But there are just different things that are out in the community that you hear about nuclear energy. And as members of the community, the nuclear community, we're going to have to respond to those things. So is it coming up? Do I need to click one more? Oh, that's operator error. All right, so if you can type in some of your responses now. Safe, all right, clean energy, green, nuclear-powered sub, dangerous, mutation, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, hazardous waste, base load, Fukushima Daiichi, waste management. So as these words are populating on the screen, you'll see that some of them are positive and some of them are not so positive. But maybe it just depends on your perspective. When talking about nuclear waste, in the United States, generally speaking, nuclear waste has more of a negative connotation if you're not within the nuclear community. But if you are within the nuclear community, nuclear waste is seen as spent fuel. It's seen as an opportunity. It's untapped energy. So again, it's the same word, it's the same phrase, but my perspective is different. And as members of the nuclear community, it's our responsibility to understand both perspectives, or the many perspectives. Now, you don't have to have an answer for each perspective, but awareness is key. And it will drive the conversation, particularly if individuals know that they can come to you with their questions. Even if you don't have an answer, the fact that they can approach you, that you have a listening ear to their concerns, they're going to keep coming back to you, and you can become that trusted resource. And again, you don't have to do it alone. If I don't know the answer to a question, I'll rely on my colleagues, Gail, Andy, and others that I've known in my 20-year career to answer the question on your behalf. And when we're talking about nuclear energy, we need to be able to tell the whole story. Most people have heard about nuclear energy from the power plant perspective. Not very many people know about the nuclear applications for medicine. I have a friend that I met the first day that I showed up at Vogel 3 and 4. Her name's Virginia. She has survived cancer 4 times. 4 times. That was only possible, grace of God, by the nuclear medical isotopes that were part of her treatment. And if you talk about advancements in nuclear, actually last week I participated in a webinar where they were talking about advanced targeting for medical isotopes. So oftentimes when an individual goes through cancer, your body takes a toll. Just to put it bluntly. With the innovation that they've done with respect to medical research, now the doses can be applied more specifically to targeted areas, more specifically to the tumors or the cancer cells versus impacting the entire body, which means your recovery time is a lot shorter. So these are the types of things that some of the general public may not be aware of. It's also good for mosquito population control. Who was aware of that? Was anyone in the room aware that nuclear technology is used to control the population of mosquitoes. Is that relevant? Yes. I mean, if you're talking about the diseases that are carried by mosquitoes and how they impact you, how they impact your family, this is life-saving technology. And it's not something in the future, it's occurring now. So again, there are more examples like this in nuclear. So we need to make sure that we're including all of the story when we're having these dialogues. And the last one on the list, economic viability. Because it brings new business opportunities at the nuclear power plant and to the surrounding community, there's freedom that comes with that economic viability and independence. Now, when you're having these public engagements opportunities, they're going to take all types of formats. Our MC is a journalist, so he has led and hosted many one-on-one conversations as well as public forums. Want to talk about a subject matter expert? Here's one right here on how to engage your stakeholders in discussions like this. And there are others in the room. But I would recommend working in the format that you're most comfortable with. I'm okay with public speaking, minorly, modestly. Some people are prolific writers. So it's easier for them to write a blog article or send a response to an article that's already online versus standing in front of a group of people and delivering a speech or answering questions. So find whatever you're most comfortable doing and you'll be more successful in doing that. And again, you're not doing this on your own. You'll have partners along with you on this marathon of a race. So if one of your friends or colleagues is more comfortable doing public speaking, tag team. Again, you don't have to do this on your own. So if social media, TikToking or Instagram about nuclear is your avenue, I mean, I do not have a TikTok account. I'm too old for that. I'm too old for that. I'm on Facebook, but that's about as far as I'll go. But there are, at different stages, you're more comfortable with different mediums to communicate your message. So again, work with what you're comfortable with. Oh, did I skip one? Oh, interviews, webinars, and podcasts. Vendor meetings. Show up for the vendor meetings. That is so important to do because they're there to answer whatever questions you have about the technology that they're offering to you. And they're busy. They're really busy trying to make things happen in multiple points across the globe. So for the vendors to take time, or even the regulators to come and answer questions and engage in the public, when those opportunities are afforded you, take advantage of that. Because these are the subject matter experts that can truly answer your questions. These are the stakeholders that want to see this succeed. And to have them in a space in one room at one time, that's essentially a gold mine. So, next activity. Which of these is most important to you? I'll advance it. As a stakeholder or engaging other stakeholders, what's most important to you? Building trust? Demonstrating accountability? I think someone in the crowd mentioned that this morning, accountability. Exhibiting open communication. Commissioner Wright touched on that. Or practicing early consultation or conversation. Information isn't really useful if it's yesterday's news, if I'm trying to make a decision on today. So which of these is most important? It seems like building trust and credibility is hard to do. It's winning, but it is hard to do. I mean, everyone in this room, I imagine, has had someone in their life that has broken their trust. How hard is it for them to regain it? It's extremely difficult. I mean, how can if you told me something before and it wasn't exactly true or right, how can I rely on you to take my best interests at heart and communicate the truth to me this time? So that is why it is so critical to spend the time to build those relationships over time. And if you don't know the answer to a question, be honest about it. There's probably somebody else in the community that can answer that question on your behalf. But once you've taken the time to build that trust and that credibility amongst your peers and colleagues and amongst the community, you don't want to lose that. It'll take a long time to build it back. So strengthening communications among key organizations, many of which are in the room today. Let's see. We're going to talk in this section about a couple of things. We're going to talk about something that I think most of you may be aware of, and that's misinformation and disinformation. And then we're going to close in with the relationship building with key organizations, and I'm going to have my colleague, unless the schedule has changed, Mr. Bassett will come and talk. But first of all, we'll touch on misinformation and disinformation. 4 years ago, in the United States, there was an election. And as a result of the election, there was a lot of information being pumped into the media, social media, television, any form or venue that you could find information, it was being pumped. The problem is the information wasn't always true. The information wasn't always reliable. It wasn't always sourced, meaning I have this article on what seems to be a reputable website, but I can't tell who wrote this. I can't tell if the person that wrote this article really knows what they're talking about. And I have no way of tracing to see whether or not they've used any credible references or if they just got their information off the back of a cereal box. How do you know what's real? How do you know what is true information? How do you know what's reliable information? Especially when the majority has a loud voice and they're not telling you things that are correct. Just because a voice is louder doesn't mean that it's always right. So when you're encountering misinformation and disinformation, there is a subtle difference between the two. The main difference between the two is intent. Misinformation is basically just information that's wrong or misleading. It just happens to be incorrect. Whereas disinformation, it's intentionally designed to create confusion and chaos. They know the message is not true. They're just putting it out there anyway, which makes it very difficult for a stakeholder to make the right decision at the right time. There are other types of misinformation and disinformation, like PsyOps, which is psychology operations, where they use a message to manipulate you to believe a certain thing or a certain way or accept a certain position. Propaganda, information that's only giving one part of the story or part of the argument. All of these are different types of, different categories of the information that you'll be sifting through as you're trying to craft a message for the right stakeholders. So when you're looking at misinformation or disinformation, you're trying to figure out which is it. Did they just not have enough information, or are they intentionally trying to confuse me with the information that they're sharing? Types of content is one way that you can make a difference or trying to tell the difference between the two. Motivation, if you are able to clearly identify who the author of the article or who the newscaster is, if you happen to know their underlying motivations, like do they have a particular political affiliation? Do they have a particular familial relationship that is causing them to deliver a message in some way? Or are they just really passionate about nuclear because they have a family member that has suffered from a disease that was healed from nuclear technology and they want to share that message? There's always a reason why a person is sharing a message. So to help you understand whether it's misinformation or disinformation, it helps to know their motivation. And then dissemination. How is that message getting to you? Is it word of mouth? Is Is it two friends talking? Is it two business colleagues talking? Is it a journal article? Is it a webinar that you've attended? Is it social media, or was it a public meeting that you attended? There are many ways that you can encounter misinformation and disinformation. And here's just another example of the different types that you can encounter. False connection, which is basically when they're trying. The best way that I can describe that is if you're reading an article online and you click on the heading, or you see a whole bunch of headings and that you have this heading that is an attention grabber, and you click on it and you open the article and it has nothing to do with what the title of the article was. That's one type of misinformation. It's misdirecting you. They caught your attention with the title of the article and then they sent you off in a different direction. Fabricated content. That's just something that's just made up. There's really no other way to put it. There's no accuracy in the content. There's no truth. There are no sources that you can reference to determine and confirm its validity. It's just made up. So some of the ways that you can spot fake news or misinformation or even disinformation is, again, to question the intent. Why are they crafting this message in this way? What is their objective in sharing this message? Who is the target audience? Is it the general public? Is it regulators because they know they're about to make an important decision? Is it the tactics that they're using? Are they manipulating you in the message and the specific words that they're using in their communications? Or is it because of the impact, the potential economic impact of the decision that these stakeholders are making? All of those things play into how you can determine what is misinformation and what is disinformation. So how does it impact our work? When you have misinformation, I guess the better question is, what happens if you do nothing? What happens if you encounter some information or misinformation that you know, based on your encounters with others or your education, that the information is just simply not true? What happens if you don't respond to it? You just let it float out there in cyberspace. Are there any consequences? Is there any impact, really, by not addressing or dealing with the message that you know to be untrue? There are public safety concerns. There are public acceptance concerns. If you didn't address the misinformation and the disinformation in the beginning, how do I know that if a similar incident or accident occurs, that you'll respond in a timely manner? Economic prosperity and global influence. Believe it or not everybody wants you to advance in nuclear energy and nuclear technology, because they know that it gives you better positioning globally. It gives you a louder voice at the table. And as someone once said to me, I think it was at a seminar a couple of weeks ago, if you're not seated at the table, you're most likely on the menu. Okay? So if you don't address the misinformation and disinformation, it has the potential to upset the economic advantage that you could gain by welcoming this technology, by welcoming these new opportunities. So to do nothing, you are actually doing something. So the impact of false information in the internet. So who in here has a Facebook account? Okay, Facebook, WhatsApp. Who uses WhatsApp? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, can you just imagine for a moment how many WhatsApp messages or how many Facebook posts occur in a single day globally? Globally. Talk about getting a message out. Social media has kind of taken us all by storm. We're all scrambling with the best way to respond quickly to the information as quickly as it's being put out. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge. Just as soon as you respond to an article, somebody else has already responded. So it's difficult to keep up, but at some point, you need to be able to switch from defense to offense. You need to have your messages crafted and ready to go because you know the misinformation or disinformation is coming. That should not be a surprise to you. You're endeavoring to do something great. There are entities, organizations that may not particularly be on board, maybe some of your competitors, but at the end of the day, you have the responsibility for knowing the information and responding in a timely manner. And if you're not the best athlete, if you're not the best person to respond to that, there's someone in your circle that can. Some of the common harms from online misinformation, as listed here, fabrication and dissemination of false information. It can be harmful to individuals, social groups, organizations, or countries. Abuse and harassment of individuals that are trying to spread the right message. All of these things could potentially happen, especially if you don't address the issues as they arise. So how can you counter the misinformation and disinformation as it's released? Well, one way is to plan for it. You know it's coming. You can identify the people right now that will speak on your behalf in certain areas. Like if you have a technical expert in the fuel cycle, for example, maybe that individual is the best person to respond to the regulator with questions regarding a new technology. But that subject matter expert is not the best person to talk to my sister. That conversation would go, he would lose her. Not because of an intelligence difference, but she doesn't know that person. She doesn't know that they care. So in that scenario, I am the best person to communicate whether something is true or something is untrue with respect to the nuclear industry. And I may not be able to answer all of my sister's questions, but she trusts me. We built that relationship. So she knows that even if I don't have the answer, because we have that established relationship, I'm going to do whatever I can to get the right answer to her. Credible sources or credible resources. There are so many agencies that are currently in existence and have been recently formed that are creating platforms to give voices to those who are subject matter experts or really passionate about nuclear energy and its potential for Africa as a continent and the individual nations. So to already have those individuals and resources identified so that you can respond in a timely manner, that's one of the things that you can do now. You can do that today. Also, you can create consistent, repeatable processes so that, let's say there's an article that's out on medical isotopes. You've already identified your subject matter expert in that area. They can respond to those questions. There can be a database that you create on the types of questions that you are already prepared for, so that you don't have to think in the moment about what the appropriate response is. Train for it. Rapid response exercises. I know at the nuclear power plants, they train for emergency situations. You can do the same thing. You can have public forums that are not exactly public where you practice your responses and engagements, because you're going to encounter some individuals that aren't necessarily going to support your position. So you need to at least put yourself in those environments, in those situations where you can respond in a way that's well received. Even if they don't like your message, they will respect you for having it. In addition to training for it and planning for it, don't lose your voice. By not saying something, you're giving the opportunity for someone else to speak on your behalf. So don't lose your voice. Don't let someone else speak up for you, particularly if you're part of the younger generation and you think, oh, well, I do know the answer to this question, but there are a lot more seasoned individuals in the room. Your perspective is valuable. Your perspective is needed. Your responses are needed. And there are senior people, seasoned people, that are all too happy, another race analogy, to pass the baton to the next generation of nuclear leaders. Building and strengthening your networks. Again, you can't do this alone. You're going to have a strong network in order to respond to all of the questions from your stakeholders, whether internal or external. So you have to start that now. This summit is an excellent place to do that. And then finally, use your resources. We have representatives here from the IAEA that have had the opportunity to speak, other government agencies and non-government organizations, fact-checking tools. One of the ones that I typically use is Snopes. Whenever somebody sends me an email and I'm not really sure if it's accurate or true, I can put the content of the information into a website called Snopes, and it'll tell me whether the information is true or not. All of these types of resources available to you, professional societies, fact-checking tools. You can use these resources today. And if you want to, my discussion here on stakeholder engagement is pretty high level, but if you're ready to take the next step, the next stride in this journey, in this race, there are resources that are currently available to you. I listed a couple of them here. There are a lot more, and if you want to know the list of a few more of them, I can provide them outside of this presentation. But some people have already walked this path. They already have identified the key points and information and strategies that you can begin to implement and tailor to your specific country and needs. So in summary, how to counteract misinformation and disinformation, you need to understand the different types of content that you're going to be delivering, understanding the objectives of the creators of misinformation and disinformation. What is their true motivation for providing this information to you? Also, being understanding of the impact of doing something or doing nothing can have when it comes to misinformation and disinformation. What type of response you're going to need to prepare. You need to know your audience. You need to know the processes and have messages prepared that you are able to respond consistently and credibly to any questions that come your way. And again, know the resources that are available to you. So that concludes my presentation. I will say one thing. What my manager that I talked about earlier, that we only had 2 weeks or meetings every 2 weeks, there was something on his wall, a quote from former President Theodore Roosevelt that he delivered in 1910. I believe this poem or speech is called "The Citizen in the Republic." It's also referred to as "The Man in the Arena." And it basically talks about an individual that steps into a ring and has made a decision to do something daunting, something extraordinary, something incredible, and the fight to do that, how there are naysayers around him that aren't particularly interested in him succeeding, but how he presses on despite that because he knows what can be achieved. Africa is in that position right now. As I said before, you're making increasing strides into deciding what's best for your future. And there will be people that aren't particularly interested in you succeeding. But everyone in this room is. They're committed to seeing a brighter, stronger future for this continent. You have the resources available to you. So take advantage of that and never lose your voice. Never let someone speak on your behalf that doesn't have your best interests at heart. So with that, I will conclude my message. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. The chocolates are available for you. Elaine? Yeah, you forgot that. In fact, I probably should be giving you 2 because you finished in good time. But thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's also possible because I gave her the handheld microphone, so she felt free. So we're going to come to the interactive, the Kenyan perspective, and going to take that from Mr. Bassett Buyuka in a bit. Before then, though, we are just going to have to shift a few things around. We're supposed to have some welcome remarks from Nupia, and we're going to do that now. So I want to invite Mr. Justice Ubiyabo from Nupia, the Chief Executive Officer of Nupia, to come give us some welcome remarks. I believe this time I got the name right. All right, we'll take, let's go to the Kenyan perspective, and then we'll come and then take the welcome remarks from Nupia. So, Mr. Bassett Buyuka, a round of applause, please.
Come on, you can do it better than that. Yeah, we like lots of energy in this country, and
the name Buyuka reminds me, is it a song or something?
Yeah, Buyuka, Buyuka.
Buyuka. So you bring the energy to the room.
Yeah, absolutely. So, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. And I know there's a very heavy dose of Ghanaians here, so Akwaba, Nairobi. To all those Ghanaians here. So, we have had from Delia, just given a very good global perspective. Welcome to Kenya, those who are coming here for the first time. It will also be remiss of me just to mention, I think we have some of our legislators in the House. I know Senator Mugatana is here from Tana River, so we just acknowledge him. I don't know whether there are others, members of the National Assembly or Senate in the House at the moment, but I think they'll be notified when they're. And by the way, he comes from the land of the crocodiles in Kenya. You know, we eat crocodile in Kenya, and he's the main guy. He's got all the farms for crocodiles in Kenya, so see him later for that. I want to give a Kenyan perspective to all this, just to touch it up. I think we've had a very good understanding, and Delia's done very well. She's actually broken down all the key issues we have in stakeholder engagement, and this is recurring and it's worldwide. So what you will see from Kenya really mirrors what happens internationally, and we say that we learn from best practice, and we learn from what others do well, and we try to do what we do well. So Delia, where were you pointing this to? Got it first time. Must be a good marksman, eh? If I do a shot, anyway, I am a good marksman as well. So we want to start. I just want us to start by, I know you all had very good lunch. I don't want anyone dozing. Okay? We all had good lunch, yes? Everyone enjoyed their lunch? So I want that energy now, and we're just gonna sing this little song, and if there's nothing else you can do, you can just clap. Okay? You can clap to the rhythm, but you can also attempt to sing. And so it's just gonna be a minute or so. I want us to do it, and to do it together. Are we together? You can see it? Especially on that side, because I'm standing. Okay, I'll get off there. Then you can see. So it's very simple. We're saying we're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy all around Africa. Okay? And when you get down there, we say what? Tap, tap, tap. We do what? Pa, 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 pa. Are we together? Okay, can we? Shall we? Do we start? Everyone ready? Okay. We're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy all around Africa. Industries will grow and brighter cities. More jobs, less soaps. All along, shining future. We're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy all around Africa. USANES here, Kenya's ready. And everybody say, we're gonna have, all around Africa. Tap, 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 those are megawatts, tap, 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 lots of megawatts from nuclear energy. Okay, so she's an extortionist. So she says for one more chocolate, we do it again. Now you got in the drift of it. So we can do it together? Okay, let's go. We're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy all around Africa. Industries will grow. More jobs, all around, shining futures. We're gonna have, all around Africa. Yeah, you guys around here. Okay, let's go. USANES here. And everybody say, nuclear energy, we're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have nuclear energy all around Africa. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Lots of megawatts from nuclear energy. Okay, thank you. So, we have our special guests arriving now. And so we need to usher them in. Now, you don't know how to usher in Kenyan style, do you? You know only Akoba, Oga style. So we need to usher in our guests, Kenyan style. So I think...
We'll usher them in, but I was actually thinking that you were going to add buyaka to your song.
We could do a buyaka. And it goes very well as well. So... Alicia, are we ready?
I don't think they like the lack of singing, so I don't know if they're coming in.
Oh, come on.
I mean, it was only this section singing, but I don't know
Well, what happened this side?
They didn't do anything. And when you're right there on the front row, I don't know. Like, what is happening to your whole section right now?
This whole section right here.
That whole middle section from Whitney all
Yeah.
that. Singing. Try it again.
We try again? One more time? Okay, on my cue. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna have all around Africa industries and brighter, all around shining futures. Nuclear energy. USANES here. And everybody say. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. From nuclear energy. And he says that, booyaka. Okay, I think we're ready for that session, the formal session. As soon as they are in.
What's happening now?
Somebody give us a sign.
5 more minutes.
4 minutes?
Yes.
5 minutes. Okay. So I think we can then proceed briefly. Or what do we do?
Emmanuel, how quickly can you give me some music? So the special guest, of course, has to make a grand entrance, so bear with us.
That's a brief musical interlude because we want, no, just let the music, just leave the music.
All right, they're coming. I see them.
Yeah?
All right.
Okay.
Look at y'all looking. Beyonce. Okay, they're coming in. We don't know if they like this theme music or not. Okay, good. Good theme music. Okay, so we're going to go right up to the front.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's please be upstanding as we receive the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable James Opiyo. He's accompanied by the Chairman, Hubert Ezra Mondi Dandi, and the CEO, Hubert Justice Wabiabu, as well as the board members from Hubert. So let's be seated and let's give him a hearty clap to welcome him into the room this afternoon. And please, Akoba.
All right, thank you very much. So we would go straight to take some welcome remarks from Justice Wabiabu, who is the Chief Executive Officer of NUPIA. A round of applause to him as he makes his way here.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The guest we're waiting for is in the house, and therefore I have no words, but I take this opportunity to first of all welcome our international delegates to Nairobi and tell you to really feel at home. Our president always says that Kenya is a cradle of man. The oldest bones of a human being are found in Turkana, and that's why he declared Kenya, if you want to come to Kenya, you don't need a visa because you're all coming home, so welcome home. Without much ado, let me take this opportunity to welcome our chairman, who will make a brief remarks, and then thereafter invite our chief guest, our cabinet secretary, Honorable James Opiyo, and I to make his remarks. Welcome, chairman.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon once more. Yes, I'm delighted to welcome you to the US-Africa Nuclear Energy Summit. So feel at home, like my CEO said, you don't need a visa to come to Kenya. It's home. Now, the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPEA, where I'm the chair, recognizes the critical role of energy in the implementation of Kenya's development agenda. Kenya's climate-efficient energy development blueprint, the low-cost power development plan, recognizes the critical characteristics of optimal energy sources, namely clean, affordable, and sustainable options. These requirements are efficiently addressed by inclusion of nuclear in the country's energy blueprint. Now, having said that, I'll further emphasize that the Kenya government is committed to responsible use of nuclear technology in medicine, agriculture, hydrology, energy, material science, and other areas. And to achieve this, UPEA was established. And we have been on a long journey towards realizing these objectives. One of the key cornerstones of responsible use of nuclear technology is the development of a national policy on nuclear technology. That is an undertaking which we're just about to complete, and will very soon be presenting to Parliament our national policy on nuclear technology. Along with that, we have also developed a legal framework which resulted in the enactment of the Nuclear Regulatory Act in 2019. And through that act, we also established the Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority, which is a body that has got a board of directors and its executive. It is in existence, and as was said earlier, there will be some bilateral agreements and arrangements with the US Commission on nuclear regulation. So, the Kenya government is committed to safety and security of use of nuclear technology. And I'll emphasize once more that nuclear safety is our overriding principle in the implementation of the nuclear power program. The government has a moral duty to ensure that people and the environment, present and future, are protected against radiation risks. To this end, the agency has continued to ensure laws and regulations governing the application of nuclear technology, especially on electricity generation, are enacted. Along with that, UPEA has also undertaken a strategic environmental social assessment study to inform on the steps to be taken in order to ensure all environmental issues around implementation of Kenya's nuclear power program are evaluated and recommendations implemented. The study has been inclusive and has been subjected to all the county governments through engagement forums throughout the process. The study represents and makes various recommendations aimed at ensuring that the implementation of the nuclear power program is environmentally sensitive and inclusive. Now, I would also want to take this opportunity to introduce the board members of UPEA that are with us in the room today. So, can you rise so that I can see who is in the room? Okay, at this end we have Professor Henry Rono, one of the directors in UPEA. Just wait, please. Then next we have Elizabeth Benjo, also one of the directors in UPEA. Then we have next to him Edwin Munene, and also in the room we have Arthur Koteng at the other end. And last but not least, we also have our CEO, Justus Wawiabu. And finally, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Joe and I, to come and address the gathering. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me apologize most profusely. I would have wanted to be here by 9 a.m. this morning, but due to last minute plan from the presidency for me to attend a meeting at State House, a meeting that was meant to unveil the candidature of our Kenyan candidate for the African Union Commission chairmanship. I had to be there, and that's why I've come late. And secondly, let me also bring to you the best wishes from the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, who again, because he's hosting a number of presidents and heads of government from the East Africa region over the African Union Commission chairmanship issue, is unable to be with us here today. But let me proceed to make a few remarks, if you allow me. And I want to start by saying that I'm indeed very delighted to join you this afternoon for what I would call opening ceremony, which I know you've been on since morning, of the US Africa Nuclear Energy Summit 2024. I would like to warmly welcome the delegates drawn from countries as diverse as the USA, I believe South Africa, Ghana, Uganda, Nigeria, France, Botswana, Cameroon, Tanzania, Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Morocco, Austria, Somalia, Benin, Namibia, Mauritius, and partners. The convergence of such a rich mix of countries provides an excellent platform for benchmarking, exchanging experiences, and shared learning of the concepts, trends, challenges, and opportunities in the field of nuclear energy, in preparing the continent's industries for the nuclear power. The US Africa Nuclear Energy Summit of 2024 is a pivotal event, if you agree with me, that underscores the significance of nuclear energy in our continent's journey towards sustainable development and energy security. The theme of this summit, that is industry readiness, aptly captures the critical phase we are entering in our journey towards embracing nuclear energy, especially in this part of the world. I want to extend my gratitude. First and foremost, you know, I am barely 2.5 weeks in office, but I must hasten to extend my gratitude to the President of the Republic of Kenya, our local and international partners, including the U.S. Department of Energy, Regional Clean Energy Training Center, and the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, BER, for their unwavering commitment to planning a holistic summit that provides a platform for networking, interactive sessions, and hands-on workshops for the participants. This summit has got the fullest blessings and support of the President of the Republic of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, energy is a critical component to guarantee economic development. This entails the availability and accessibility energy at an affordable cost. The government of the Republic of Kenya has identified access to clean, environmentally friendly, competitively priced, reliable, quality, safe, and sustainable energy as one of the key enablers of achieving the Vision 2030 and the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Kenya's energy generation capacity remains fairly low. And this challenge remains alive given the rising population and the accelerated socioeconomic development. Maintaining energy security, affordability, and reliability is an urgent priority for the country, as it is indeed for the entire African continent. Through our national Least Cost Power Development Plan, which we shall be referring to from time to time in the course of this summit and thereafter, Kenya aims to introduce nuclear technology to complement the already existing green component in the energy mix. Those of you who are in Kenya remember when I was taken through the approval hearings in Parliament before my formal appointment. I made a commitment to fast track the development of nuclear energy. That commitment still stands. Indeed, it's getting more and more strengthened as we move along. So nuclear energy is an indispensable tool for achieving the global sustainable development agenda. Nuclear power has long stood as a beacon of promise in this regard, that is offering clean, reliable, and continuous energy generation. It has a key role to play in decarbonizing the energy sector, but also supports the attainment of all sustainable development goals, to elimination of poverty, zero hunger, clean water, affordable energy, economic growth, and industry innovation. As we look to the bright future powered by nuclear energy in 2034, because that is the timeline for our first nuclear energy generation to take off. International cooperation is indispensable. Kenya is committed to working with global partners to ensure that the country adheres to the highest standards of safety and industry readiness. By fostering bilateral and multilateral partnerships, we aim to benefit from global best practices and technological innovations, ensuring a smooth and secure transition to nuclear energy. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to emphasize that peaceful application of nuclear science and technology will be a game changer in the socio-economic development of the African continent and indeed the entire globe. I look forward to this summit being a stepping stone towards a brighter and greener energy landscape for all of humanity. This summit represents a significant step in our collective efforts to build a robust and sustainable energy future for Kenya and the continent. Let us continue to collaborate, to innovate, and to prepare, ensuring the full potential in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my remarks this afternoon, I take this opportunity to assure the participants and indeed the world of Kenya's commitment toward successful implementation of nuclear power plants. The Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, through the government of Kenya, will also continue to facilitate bilateral and multilateral nuclear power program partnerships. I invite participants to take advantage of their time in Kenya and visit some of our world-renowned tourist attractions that are scattered all over. Spare some time and travel to the Masai Mara, the famed Masai Mara, and witness the breathtaking spectacle, which I understand is the eighth wonder of the modern world. That is the wild beast migration. So thank you very much. Asante sana.
Honorable Wandai, please, before you take your seat, please come forward. So, I'm from Ghana, and as the MC, I've been giving out chocolates. I've been trying to reach every Kenyan with the chocolates I brought from Ghana, but I'm unable to reach all of them. And since you're the highest ranking Kenyan government official, I'm gonna hand over all the chocolate for Kenyans to you. Thank you too. Okay, so I'm now going to cede the floor and to Delia and Bassett to continue with the Q&A for this session. So please, yeah, a round of applause to them too. Stay coming.
Okay, thank you, Akoba. You know, you have cocoa, but it's processed in Europe. That's why you're not telling people.
This one is actually from Ghana, processed in Ghana.
Anyway, so as the Cabinet Secretary exits to his other exigencies, I think we'll continue with our program. We've realized there are 20 very good singers and 50 other who mime, and another 50 who will just observe. So I think we can do it one last time, because I noticed, for the benefit of those who are not there, and then I very quickly will go through, and then we'll take your Q&A with Delia. So for those who've rehearsed and have done this, can we do it now? Okay? 1, 2, 3. We're gonna have all around Africa industries and brighter, more jobs, ooh la la, shining future, nuclear energy, USANES here, and everybody say, we're gonna have nuclear energy. We're gonna have all around Africa. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. From nuclear energy. Okay, let's get on with it. So, Delia talked about, you want the buyaka. Okay, so Delia talked about the broader issues and stakeholder engagement, and this still just goes to the same. Some of the key issues we communicate, of course, the benefits, the risks, commitments, obligations. We talked about issues to do with the West, the kind of fears people have. Why nuclear at all? People want to know why in my backyard there's a NIMBY not in my backyard. We got the whole siting process. Why are you locating it where we are? And those are some of the issues that, of course, do come up. We talked about INIL, and I think engineering alluded to it in the morning. And we had an INIL mission here, the first INIL mission that was done for Kenya for phase 1 of the nuclear power program. And actually, it was cited as a best practice, what we were able to do in terms of stakeholder engagement at that time. So, a public opinion survey to identify main interests and concerns of stakeholders, and then we're able to sensitize the policymakers, train journalists, and roll out of public education and initiatives of that sort. And that was very critical to what the agency wanted to achieve at the time. You seem to have put the gremlins in now. So public education and awareness, of course, to increase understanding and acceptance. And we've been emphasizing all afternoon transparent communication and information dissemination. And I think earlier we talked about the difference between misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation could be ignorance. Disinformation is very deliberate. And we have agents of disinformation as well. A lot in this kind of endeavors. So we talked about community engagement. So very key. We had the deputy governor of Kilifi County here, one of the potential sites in Kenya, and this just shows some of the kind of community engagements done to sensitize people on the why of nuclear energy and why in my neighborhood, what are the benefits, what are the risks. Very important. What are we going to do? The bugbear issue always. What are we going to do with nuclear waste? And William Magwood IV would answer that question better than most on the planet, having been in the USNRC and with his vast knowledge. But so very critical, and that's one of the issues that is addressed. So that just shows some of the community engagement. This further community engagement. I think you can see our CEO down there in the sweltering heat, and this is just some of the engagements. As a principal secretary who works with the cabinet secretary who's been here not so long ago, and engaging county governments and giving back in terms of to the community as well, community through corporate social responsibility kind of initiatives. STEM outreach, very critical. I think in the morning there's a lady who asked, a young graduate engineer who was asking, so what happens? And I think the CEO did emphasize that the young Kenyans are the drivers of this project going forward. So we have a lot of STEM emphasis. We have what we call nuclear student ambassadors. We have mentorship programs for children, so we go to schools and they're able to become part of this. And there are debates we do, and we also entice them with essay competitions. So they do essay competitions for schools and even for universities as well, to be able to get people to be of mind in terms of what we can do in terms of energy development. Academia engagements, I've just talked about that, and so we do quite a number of this with universities as well, and sort of sites like institutions. There's open days and kind of public information centers which you set up during kind of events that happen all over. Equivalent of almost like roadshows and things like those. So you have exhibits, news models, and other things that are able to reflect nuclear energy in various parts of the country. And then there is environmental conservation, a very key initiative. We're talking about nuclear being green energy. I think that's one of the things that popped up a lot if we're saying that nuclear is green energy. But apart from green energy, we say that nuclear is clean energy. And so we want to emphasize that because some of the concerns people have are around biodiversity sites, marine environments and things like those. And so we emphasize we are part of the environment. Just a disclaimer, it is me driving the tractor there. And yes, I am driving it. It is moving. Yeah, so I think we move into the next. Yeah, some of the challenges. There's a lot of nuclear phobia sometimes. Sometimes due to either the lack of information, sometimes due to the way people have always grown and developed. Let me give you an example. If a snake was to slither here, what would everyone do? Everyone would run for the door. Would somebody wait and find out, is that snake? And we have garden snakes, very common. But no one's going to ask because everyone was going to want to run away. But not all snakes are poisonous. Not all snakes are harmful. We still need snakes because we need the venom, okay? To extract that venom because it does some good things as well, okay? So, but what's the natural knee-jerk reaction? Run. So that some people hear nuclear, what's the natural reaction? Danger. So those kind of things, the myths and misconceptions around it. Anti-nuclear lobby groups who sometimes do exactly what we were talking about, disinformation, okay? Propaganda, issues like that. The biases people have because of what they've seen, where they've grown. Our whole generation that grew up knowing nothing but Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you know, and things like those, and that becomes the ancient myth. But with the demographics, and this way you have to segment, because the younger people you engage with, the younger stakeholders, do understand these issues better than some of those who would fear. And there's inertia, as I'm alluding to from history, what people know from the past. And they have that inertia and they don't want to get out of it. And that fear grows in them. So it's a whole panoply of issues. So some of the things we've seen and observed, information is key. Information is key. There is nothing to dispel disinformation and propaganda as just ensuring people have the information regularly and continuously. Political commitment as a country. I'm glad the previous speaker has just reaffirmed the government's commitment to nuclear energy less than 5 minutes ago, and gone away with 2 boxes of chocolate courtesy of so I hope you've left one for me and Delay as well. Use of concrete evidence to showcase benefits. Doing things that are concrete in nature. Engagement of the youth, okay? Tapping into the youth because they are very vocal voice. My friend from Ghana just mentioned Kenyans on Twitter. Now it's Kenyans on X, and the way they sorted him out once. Because he was doing things which are unmanly. But you know, that is the Kenyans. And it's not only you they've taken on. They've taken on Uganda, they've taken on South Africa, they've taken on Nigeria, they take on anyone. And I think it's one of the most vibrant kind of social media group. And it's amorphous and it's everywhere. So who is Kenyans on X? It's you, me, and him, and everyone, you know. Because once you contribute, you give to that motion. So that's a very important. And then the networks can reach other youths, and information is spread effectively. Delia says she's not on TikTok. Delia, I'm on TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all those. I like to be everywhere. For the simple reason that if you're not on the platform, then you are illiterate about it. So you need to know what's going on there. You don't have to post all those, you know, funky, but at least be able to reach out. We have a generation, which we're now calling Generation Z, who mainly, you know, understand communication through those kind of platforms. So you have to know how to be able to engage those. We talked here about STEM engagements and how vital they are in being able to build a workforce. I remember Engineer Ohaga. By the way, he was a president of all the engineers in Kenya not so long ago. And then they decided he'd had enough of his term. And then like most African presidents, he gracefully stepped down at the completion of that period. So that was good. But as he says, being able to develop the potential in people, exposing them. The master's courses in Korea and elsewhere, which have been very useful. And of course, very key, start with the willing, those who have some level of understanding that you can build on before you just move to everyone. So you have to do it in a systematic way. Start with those who are willing or have some knowledge or have some level of, and this can be the champions, ambassadors, who can be able to inspire others, and they become part of the voices that you can use. And then you can, after that, you can focus on the hard-to-get stakeholders, creative solutions to enable them to reach out to them, being able to brand nuclear energy better. Now, one of the key aspects we're doing, this morning you were told about the Nuclear Society of Kenya, which is a brand new baby. And I don't know, David, you said you're the president or the chairman? You see, it's crazy. Everyone in Kenya wants to be a president of something. So on that row, incredibly, on that row, the third row there, we have 3 people calling themselves presidents. President of Engineers, President of Women in Nuclear Kenya, and President of Nuclear Society of Kenya. And somewhere in this room also is the President of East Africa Association of Radiation Protection. I don't know where she is. Okay? So we have like 4 presidents, and then there is Kenya Young Generation in Nuclear. Where are they? Chesori was somewhere there, also a president. You know? So we got so many. We got so many of those. Yes. Yeah, there you go. So something very interesting and enticing. But the more the voices, the better. So these partnerships are very useful. We have, I see my friend Nadir Hashim from Kenyatta University, where there's a whole setup to be able to get virtual learning from the center up north, you know. I has done an incredible job there. And so there's that good interconnection there, and the students there are able to benefit from that. In fact, we did visit there with the Deputy Director General of the IAEA just a few months ago, and wonderful reception, and the students were very engaged and very engaging. You know, you can be engaged but not engaging. So they were both engaged and very engaging, and that was very useful. So all these bodies I'm mentioning, plus others, we also work with them and through them to be able to send the message, because the more the voices, the better. We have our colleagues from the Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority. I know I've seen several of them here, and we also work with them very closely, because they're the regulatory body, and their voice also needs to be heard in these matters. But overall, what I would say is that stakeholder engagement is a continuous process. You never reach a point and say, now we got them in the bag. Because stakeholders are not about bagging, they're about understanding continuously. And as things develop and evolve, that understanding still needs to be maintained. We've had ebbs and flows in that respect as a country, because we've seen periods are very high, and then when you decide on a potential site again, you know, you have to try and build it up, and those kind of things. But it's a good endeavor. It's a good journey, and I believe that the experiences of various African countries, when mirrored and shared, can help us have more vibrant, more robust engagements collectively. And Kenya is firmly on that track. And I've seen part of what Ghana does in some international, you know, meetings and what I've seen presentations I've seen from other parts of the continent. So I have a fairly good appreciation that some of the issues we face are similar. The approaches to dealing with them, sometimes we use different approaches, but it's very critical. And as you had said earlier, very important to understand who the stakeholders are, to segment them, and to know that what each stakeholder segment requires, because the message is as important as a messenger. In fact, the messenger without a good message is just a guy with flip-flops who is coming along, you know. So you need to have a good message to impart across, and then do it succinctly and clearly. Nuclear can have jargon, so you have to break down the technical issues to make it palatable to a wide audience. And that's why you have to segment your audience, because if your audience is academia, it's different from a group of village elders. You know, it's different from a group of fisher folk who may want to talk to understand how the marine environment could be affected by a nuclear power program, and et cetera, et cetera. So those are very useful things to consider in this regard. But with those many words, I think I rest my case on the Kenyan perspective, and I now defer back to Delia. I don't know what you want to do next. Remove a rabbit from the hat or something? Okay. So let's bring her back. I don't know, are they clapping for me or for you? Both of them. Okay, let's do that then.
Thank you. So we'll begin the Q&A portion of the presentation. Wait, is this one? Hello? Okay. So, Mr. Boyuka, I just have to say, I'm not going to stick around to ask a snake whether it's poisonous or not. I'm probably going to be out the door. So I'll wait for the information to come to me later. Again, thank you for your time and your attentiveness. We're opening the floor to questions. I can give this mic back so that if there are additional people, that have questions. If you have questions, you're free to ask them now. Thank you. What? No questions?
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
I would like to take it. My name is Engineer Innocent Luoga. I am the Commissioner responsible for electricity and renewable energy from Tanzania. First, I would like to congratulate Delea and Buyoka for the good presentation. I have two comments. The first one is regarding the Kenya perspective on the nuclear. As it has been said that nuclear is danger, but I want to tell you that everything is danger. It depends on the use. Everything is danger. Think about the knife. Knife has got many uses, but only one misuse, we call it knife is danger. So we should take also nuclear is good. Danger depends on it is uses. So on the Kenyan perspective, I would like to know or to get to tell us the feedback on the stakeholders engagement since you have started this initiative, because we know that nuclear technology, it has been there for many years, but it is always being new. And you have shown or you presented the initiative we've done to the stakeholders engagement. Now I would like to get feedback the change of mindset from we started up to now. How do you see it? The second question goes to Madam Delea. As I said, that nuclear technology has been there for many years, but now it always looks like new. Now I would like to get feedback or to know how the stakeholders engagement could help on the local content participation. You know, in every project, community want to participate in those projects. So I would like to know in the nuclear technology perspective, what are the local content participation in this project, and also I would like to get experience from the nuclear energy project which have been implemented probably in USA or in other countries. what are the corporate social responsibility projects which are related to nuclear energy, nuclear technology? Thank you.
So I guess I'll answer first. Speaking from experience, I mentioned earlier that I had the opportunity to work in a nuclear power plant while it was under construction for about 10 years. And during that 10-year period, I had an opportunity to witness how the utility engaged the public with respect to the progress on the project, with respect to nuclear energy, what it was going to do, how it was going to provide energy to homes that may not have had it in regions before. But one of the great things that I saw them do was invite the public on site, particularly the family members of the plant workers. Obviously, the plant workers understand nuclear better than most people because that's their job, that's their responsibility. But by bringing family members to the project, and they did all the necessary security checks, etc., and they didn't go all the way inside of the nuclear power plant, but they got them close enough so that the family members could have an appreciation for what their brother, what their father, what their sister, what their cousin did on a daily basis. And that made it real. So that when their family member had subsequent conversations about nuclear or what they were doing, they felt like they could understand. They felt like they were part of the discussion. They didn't feel like it was something so foreign that they couldn't understand. And then you created a network, a small network, because that family member that works at the nuclear power plant now has emissaries or ambassadors who are other family members that can talk to their friends about nuclear power and nuclear energy and its benefits. So that is just one way that I saw the utility trying to make an impact in the community by starting with their own employees, saying, hey, we appreciate the work that you're doing every day. Or, hey, university students, we know that you have a choice of where you can do your internships and cooperative opportunities. We appreciate you coming here to the nuclear power plant to learn about what we do and the impact that we're making, not just in this community, but globally and nationally. So why don't we give you an opportunity to show your family what you do on a daily basis? So that kind of pulls them in and then creates more people that can spread a positive message about nuclear energy. One of the other unexpected examples that I saw in the United States about persuading people to have a different perspective, or at least listening to nuclear energy, was a film that came out several years called Pandora's Promise. And it was a film, a documentary that interviewed several individuals who were initially anti-nuclear. Vocal anti-nuclear. And it showed, it took you through a short journey on how their mind was changed, how they became pro-nuclear after for so many years being anti-nuclear. And a lot of the reasons were personal. Not because, it brings, well, yes, because it brings jobs, but there was a reason where they realized that their position on being anti-nuclear was no longer sustainable. The great thing about that movie is that it was not financed by any nuclear company or corporation or any government. It was an individual who wanted to make a film about people changing their minds. And honestly, they said it better than I ever could as a trained nuclear engineer. They were able to make a more persuasive argument than any of my technical discussions could make on why nuclear was beneficial, why it needed to be part of the discussion when you're talking about renewables. We're not trying to push solar out the door or push wind or push hydro out. We want to be part of the collective solution for clean energy. And so I really think the most impactful thing that we can do is just have those initial one-on-one conversations with family members and friends And if we have companies that are pro-nuclear or organizations that are pro-nuclear that are willing to open their doors and show their facilities or have a public forum and put yourself in a position to hear those challenging questions, the ones that eventually have to be answered if you're going to move forward, I think those opportunities have the greatest impact.
Okay, ndugu Tanzania, you know, they are just our southern neighbors, so they speak better Swahili than we do, or think so. I don't know whether they really do, but they say they do, but different kind of intonation. So yes, you're right. The notion that nuclear is dangerous is relative. Actually, there are more accidents in bathrooms than in nuclear power plants. Just in your bathroom in your house, if you're not careful, you slip and fall. I'm sure most people here have had a bathroom fall. Although we not tell you, but yeah, it happens. Bathroom and in other parts of the house, that will happen in a nuclear plant. So you're very right with that. And in Kenya, we like to use the analogy of the borders, you know, the riders, where you have a pillion rider. We call that the pillion rider. We call borders. We don't know that. And the accidents from those are a lot more than you get from, you know, things like nuclear or other things. But people still ride those things with enthusiasm. Now, in terms of feedback, you asked about feedback we get. A lot of feedback. In fact, even today, we're just getting feedback here. The student who said, hey, we want opportunities. You know, depending on who they are, they'll have the feedback they'll give you relative to what they're doing. Because like where we're looking at potential sites, the issues are about risk of radiation, about what you do with the nuclear waste, about are we going to be displaced from where we're living at the moment, and what would happen then? Would we have to be resettled elsewhere? What would happen to us then? What happens to our land? You know, issues like those. And of course, others would ask that, so would this lower the cost of electricity, and how does it do it, and in what span of time? There are those who look at it that way. Others would simply ask you, what's the cost of nuclear? Can we afford it as a country? And of course, critically, and this is everyone, what everyone would be asking is, what are the benefits? But that's the bottom line. What do we get out of it?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Engineer Kennedy Omondi. I work with Kenya Pipeline. Mine is more of a feedback to Mr. Bassett, and I can see Engineer Kuhaga stepped out. I think generally in this country, I have an experience that I went through this week that I just wanted to share to just give you the gravity of the amount of work that you need to do. I think it was last week, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, I think was meeting a Nokia team. And then I think one of the comments he made was that we're having a nuclear power plant by 2034. I found that news interesting, so I took it and posted some WhatsApp group. It's a WhatsApp group of engineers. Electrical engineers are there, mechanical engineers are there, civil engineers are there. For the company I work for, and there are many. The amount of pushback that I got was staggering, coming from engineers, now not the ordinary public that maybe because of academic training, they may not understand completely what nuclear is about. These are engineers. And the pushback was mostly on three things. Number one is the issue of funding. And you know, in this country, the issue of public debt has really become a very big issue. And they were saying, whatever money that you have as a country, we would rather spend it on A, B, C, D, but not spend it on anything like nuclear investment. The second reason for the pushback was, you know, this country is endowed with a lot of geothermal resources. And so the idea was that we have enough sources of clean or renewable energy that you can use. And we need to develop those first. We don't need nuclear. And of course, the third item was safety. But what was staggering is that in that group of 50 plus engineers, not a single one was supporting the issue of nuclear. So I was looking at it in terms of these are engineers who have the academic training to be able to understand even the safety issues they're talking about. They can Google and they can read. But the pushback was that much. So how about the general public? And I was reminded of a story of the wind power that was to be done in Kinangop that failed. I think those of the people who are around here can remember that case. Somebody was supposed to do generation from wind, but the project was vehemently opposed by locals. And if you look at talking about misinformation and disinformation, if you look at some of the things that the locals were being told, they were being told that when you see that turbine go around like this, it makes one full cycle. One member of the community is dead. So you can imagine if it keeps going like that in your community, after some time the whole community will be disseminated. And the locals believed it, and they opposed the project, and the project failed. So I just wanted to give you that, especially for Nupia and Eric, who was here, who has been led engineers, he recently stepped down as president of IEK. Even before you go to the communities, there are people here who the community expect them to understand what nuclear is, and there are the people who are the number one opposers. So you have a lot of work to do. Don't take anything for granted. Especially, I was looking at the medium-term plan for Ministry of Petroleum, I think 2020-2027, and they were talking of, I think, 4 possible sites have been identified. I think we need to camp in those areas if we need this thing to be a reality. Otherwise, the communities will be up in arms, judging from the feedback that I got this week. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you are giving us observations, but that's very good feedback as well. And one thing, you should go back to that group. You are now ambassador, I've recruited you. Go there and tell them we are doing this as part of an energy mix. We're not doing it to compete with geothermal or solar or wind. Nuclear is supposed to complement geothermal and other sources. So let's start there. Let's start the conversation there. If these are all engineers within pipeline, is it? Yeah, we can even have an engagement with them now as engineers in pipeline, and we can organize that with the president, former president of engineers, and we give them a talk because they are critical and they should not be yumba-yumbering. Yumba-yumbering is a Swahili slang word for weathering. Not clear on the direction.
Thank you very much.
My name is Jack.
Thank you. My name is Jack Edlow from the United States. I am a president, sir, of a transportation company. We transport radioactive cargo around the world. You made an excellent presentation, and I wanted to add one additional item. You were talking about phobias and snakes, okay? I have a phobia of snake. A phobia is an irrational fear. There is fear and there is irrational fear. So if the snake comes into the room, who fears it? Who has a phobia? I have a phobia. It's irrational. And the relationship to nuclear power is that when you talk to the public, some people fear and some people have phobia. You can address fear. I'm not sure an industry can address phobias of people because it's irrational and you can't really get to that level as an industry. But it's very important to recognize the difference and be able to respect people when they have a phobia, but deal with people when they have the fear. You also made a very excellent point, I think, and I wanted to stress this to the audience because I've been involved in this. Transportation, we relate to the public all the time. We always have public issues. When you speak to an interest group, whether it be reporters, whether it be women, whether it be the youth, they get their information in different ways. And they respect opinion leaders in different ways. And so you have to have the people who are speaking to the interest groups, listening to people who they respect and who they can relate to. That is, it's very difficult for me to go to an extremely young audience and speak to them now, because they look at me as an old, gray-haired guy who's been in the business too long. So you're right that it has to be segmented, but the people giving the information have to be relatable by those receiving the information. And I ask everybody, and it's an open question for you, whose opinion do you trust? Whose opinion do you trust? Who would come and speak to you and you would accept their opinion, whether it's nuclear power, whether it's vaccines, whether it's any other issue? Who do you trust? And that's why, at least in the US, the nuclear industry has not been successful in relating to the public in many places, because we bring the scientists or the engineers who people don't particularly relate to. So just a few comments. Excellent presentation, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Mbazo Jeremiah here from Nigeria. It was a very good nuclear song. The one that stuck the most is the tap, tap, tap. So hopefully I keep tapping some megawatts going forward. All right, so I sincerely appreciate the time and the effort by the resource persons to giving us a very good presentation here. So I have a few questions, comments, and contributions. I don't know, has anyone here watched the Atomic Africa documentary or movie? Anybody? None? Oh, we're in Africa. Nobody. Okay, I'll give you a suggestion. Go do a search on YouTube, Atomic Africa, or just check AfriNew Podcast YouTube page. We streamed it, I think, last week. You can get a view of kind of summary feeling of how some African governments feel about nuclear that has been documented in that movie. So I just want to point it out so that people can get a view of how it is. And then I made an observation in this meeting. There is no hashtag. And we just finished the youth protest where the hashtag was what carried it along. So what's the hashtag for this meeting? None. Why? Okay, so I want to suggest one. Hashtag USANES 2024 Kenya. Adopted? No? Yes? Are we taking that? All right. Reference to Dr. Bukiat, sorry, correct me.
Buyuka.
Thank you. You made a very good outing, sensitizing the public. In addition to Professor Shaukat talking about his experience with his people in Kilifi County. I wonder, because if this keeps going on and we just keep talking about it, you know, we have a unique characteristics in Africa where we have just verbal ways of documenting things. We don't, we find it hard to like put it down in writing and then have a way of referring to it somehow or more easily. So people just transmit knowledge by verbal communication. So you are doing a very good job, but I would like to know, how are you trying to maybe have a kind of report? You know, when we want to sense how people feel about nuclear, like in a place like US, we go to a place like the Gallup poll, where they post people's feelings about nuclear and all that. So I wonder if maybe locally you have a way of maybe having the graphs that reflect how people responded to your stakeholders meeting. I'm particularly very concerned about this because stakeholders engagement is one of the key areas that continues from the beginning to the end. I spent almost a decade in South Korea, living in a place where they call the nuclear maker, right? More than 10 nuclear power plants in that place. And there is something that always happens once in a while. The locals come and protest, and they get money and they keep quiet. Come back, protest, they give them money, they keep quiet. So in Africa, is this what we expect to be doing? You know, so what are the things we are arranging for ourselves, because we are unique in our own way? What are the things we need to put in place to get these things in the right form, so that when we have these things running, we'll be able to say, okay, we've been able to settle this, and we can make reference to them anytime we need them. The gender demographics, I was talking with the CEO, Mr. Wabuyabo, on the AfriNews podcast, and he made a very good contribution or statement about including the female folks in the sensitization. So I hope that will continue, so that they will feel included, and we will set the pace going forward. I don't know if you can filter out some questions from this and give a proper address. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Oga. Thank you very much. You've made statements and you've made questions as well. Yeah, I think everyone should try and Google Atomic Africa, watch what he's talking about, get to understand, because it's important. With the hashtag, I think Alicia and team have taken that on. I'm sure they'll put it to good use. In terms of how we report or track, because that's effectively what you're asking. How do we see what people have, what the position is, and use that to be able to plan ahead and also to report and document. We've had national opinion polls. We've done 2 in Kenya. We plan to do another one this year. And then in terms of the potential host communities for nuclear power plants, we want now to do a baseline for them also this financial year, to understand what their perceptions are and then move on from there. So we use that to track. So we got all those kind of graphs that show the movement over time from when we started the baseline to the second national survey to the third one that we plan to do this financial year. Thank you.
I'm Antonia Bureau from Kenya. Thank you so much for organizing this. I want to appreciate what our US counterpart has said, though he has left the room, regarding many a times we have that stakeholder approach, but sometimes we lack mechanisms, or we have inadequate mechanisms to bridge the policy, nuclear security, and emerging tech. And that is often overlooked. So I like the question you raised, like, how do we get that across? Madam Delea, your presentation brought out the issue of stakeholders to engage. I like that it talked about the unified approach. However, given the evolving threat landscape that we're having, and especially with emerging tech on AI, and I'm talking about this because your presentation talked about disinformation, and right now AI is on the front line of carrying out those disinformation attacks. So what has been your experience in strengthening the cross-sector collaboration and to counter tech, aside from having your cyber armies? Like, what have your stakeholders decided to bring on board so that they can counter AI attacks, AI-generated attacks? Because those ones spread really fast, and it becomes a bushfire to put out. Thank you.
That's an excellent question, thank you. You're absolutely right. It is very difficult to try to put out a bushfire, because when you put water on it or try to put it out, it seems like it grows bigger. We're all struggling with the approach with respect to cyber attacks and cyber security issues. The nuclear industry has cautiously moved forward with that. I'm at the national lab, so I'm not at a nuclear power plant anymore. But at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, we have different groups that are patterning AI attacks and hoping to develop strategy so that we can move, as I said earlier, from a defensive position to an offensive position. Trying to think of what else. It's a good question because we don't always have all the answers to that one. But what we did do at the end of the disinformation seminar that we gave a few weeks ago was just provide like a website that provided resources. I think it was in one of the slides, and I can talk with you afterwards. But there are already websites that have bots that can filter through information to determine whether there's a credible source attached to it or if it's fabricated information. So we're taking advantage of some of those outsourced technologies that are available to the public. But I know that at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, there are technological developments and innovation ongoing to try to have a more consistent response to the cyber attacks that we're experiencing. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Space.
Okay, so probably before you come in with your question, I want to share the experience from Ghana when it comes to how we're engaging stakeholders. So we, for a while now, have been speaking to journalists or having training sessions for journalists. So we bring selected media and we take them through workshops. And this has been going on for a few years. What we have seen happen, so what we do is we give them all the information that they need so that they can disseminate that information to the rest of the general public. And this is something you're doing before a bushfire starts. So once they're already engaged and they know and they're speaking to the people, letting the people know about nuclear energy, once the people also begin to accept it, then it's difficult, or even if there's an attempt to misinform or disinform them, they have some prior knowledge. Now, another thing that we did was to highlight the benefits of nuclear energy, or nuclear in general. So we're talking about especially the commercial benefits or the economic benefits. I think we've done such a good job that there are communities that are actually scrambling to have the nuclear plant located in their communities. Again, because the chiefs have also been engaged in opinion leaders, and they've come to appreciate that if I have a nuclear plant in my community, first they've come to be convinced that, well, nuclear is not what has been portrayed, to be that it's dangerous and all. So once they've come to accept that, then they're looking out for the benefits. That it's better to have it in my community, because when a nuclear plant comes to my community, even in the construction phase, jobs are going to be created. There are people around, food vendors, who would get business. So they've come to appreciate that. And so they're actually clamoring for these the plants to be brought to their communities. That's why for some other communities here in Kenya, people are not so keen about having nuclear in their backyard. But it's important that the people are made to understand. So we have to give them the message. And as has been said by several of the speakers, it shouldn't so much be about the scientists or the technocrats speaking to the people. You can find some journalists, and in fact you can have a core, a media core, that you're going to be engaging all the time. So such that for this session that we're having, we're going to have some journalists who are coming in to sit through the entire session so that they can go back and educate the public. One other thing we're beginning to realize that we need to do back in Ghana is the use of social media influencers, because they're also very key these days. That's where a lot of people are getting their information. So if we can get them on board as well, it would greatly help. So these are the ways we have, we're dealing with it, misinformation, disinformation back in Ghana. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think maybe one of the questions I wanted to ask is addressed the issue of social media. And I wanted to ask Mr. Buyambo.
Mr. who?
Buyuka, yes. Sorry. For the time new pairs existed, I have never seen their active dissemination of information to the public through, for example, in Kenya, many people access TVs, radio, and social media. I have not seen that activeness. And also, the information that you have been disseminating, why have you not been making the progress public? Number two, I saw the presentation by the first presenter, and there was some kind of chart or graph that grabbed my attention. That is the power versus interest of stakeholders in maybe projects or something, let me say so. And there is this group in Africa called politicians. For 7 years, I've worked in projects. And the biggest problem to any project being done are the communities around those areas. And the information or the disinformation that or propaganda that are being used, mostly they come with politicians. In that graph, they belong to people with high power, but they can have either low interest or high interest. But most of the time, the interest must be low. They just want popularity. Can you probably educate us? How do we deal with this kind of... There were suggestions that we wrote there, I cannot remember them. How do we deal with this kind of people? Because I'm sure if you deal with around politics, around these communities, we will not be having issues. Because even most of these professionals, they just follow these politicians. That is what they follow and that is what they adopt. We can talk about professionalism and everything, but in Kenya, for example, there are communities when one person talks, everybody believes that is the gospel truth. And lastly, nuclear energy. Yes, now we talk about it here very much. We have summits, we'll have workshops, we'll have seminars. But when we live here, it goes dead. Today we are here. Can you tell us the commitment they have from today, what they are going to do, that they are getting recommendations from these people who are here? Thank you very much.
So we didn't get your name.
My name is Engineer John Bosco Good.
From?
I work with Vermont Engineering Consultants. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Engineer. Part of the reason we are here is to be able to clarify issues, to exchange ideas, to exchange views, to benchmark, and to share. It's a platform for sharing as well, and improvement. However, I think even if you look at the last week alone, I just want to refer to the last week alone, there have been I think about 5 articles on this summit. If you've been observing, I'll ask my colleagues to share with you so we're on the same wavelength. And intermittently, you're saying the intermittence is what I think I'm picking from you. That why is nuclear not maybe every week or something like that, or something to that effect. However, what I can assure you is there are specific systematic approaches. There is what you call the coverage. There is also the paid up media. And in the last 2 years, we did a very extensive documentary series in 10 parts, which was aired quite broadly in the media. Our CEO regularly does current affairs programs, both on radio and TV, and we facilitate platforms, and we can also guide you to where they are, both online and on the portals, etc., etc. So we're ready to do that. And what we are now planning, I think, is how we're going to do it also on vernacular stations. Because vernacular stations are increasingly popular now. We want to also get a footprint in those ones. But it's something that is done, is continually important. So I think that's what I'd respond to that. And I think Delia, you had something.
I don't know if there was a question for me.
I think it did. But
it was with respect to motivation. You clearly identified in the example that you used the motivation of the politician. He or she has a high level of influence, but very little interest in the success of the project or the decision-making process. So it is good that you've identified the stakeholder and you identified the motivation behind it. So the next step that I would take is beginning to craft a message that speaks to their motivation. They may not be persuaded to vote a certain way that you want them to vote, but at least if you can come to them saying, hey, I understand your perspective, I understand your motivations, here's some information that is factual on the decision that we're about to make. That's at least the first step that you can take in trying to basically respond strategically to the misinformation or disinformation that's being spread.
And Engineer, what I'd also encourage you, follow us on all the platforms. So you can become you can have more conversation. LinkedIn, we're there, YouTube, Facebook, X, the one you don't like, TikTok. So follow us and let's continue the conversation, because it is a profound one. Nuclear is a very deep issue. It is an issue for 8 years. Actually, what we are doing now is your grandchildren, at the other end of the scale, or maybe great-grandchildren. I don't know if you have grandchildren, or almost. So even your great-grandchildren,
Right, and in the presentation that I had, there were a couple of resources that were identified by the IAEA that speak to stakeholder engagement and specific strategies that you can implement, engaging them in crafting your message. So I'll be around all week. If you want to talk a little bit more about some of those resources, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. This is Rafael Chesori from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I'm here to represent the network of young professionals in nuclear science and technology, right away from the international level to grassroots here in Kenya. We belong to the Youth in Nuclear, a global network. We proud ourselves as the leaders of nuclear science and technology, the youth leaders in nuclear science and technology. Actually, the topic today on stakeholders, it speaks to the heart of our foundation as a global network, which has, of course, presence at the grassroots here, Kenyan Young Generation in Nuclear. So when it comes to stakeholders engagement, I think we've really delved a lot into that, and perhaps we may be talking a lot and action later, and that's maybe our challenge that we need to address as the big elephant in the house. Like for example, as someone mentioned, they have not had or prepare massive stakeholder engagement and public participation for us, for example. It could be because the information is limited to some quarters. It's not reaching out to Bassett Buka described. There are those stakeholders that are easy to get, others hard to get, and maybe those that you should focus on. And I think it's high time that we play a crucial role as stakeholders in the industry to spearhead the information dissemination of factual information, because in the space outside there there's a lot of disinformation, and as you mentioned, politicians are key in disinforming the public and wanting to have the political mileage for their political experience. What I want to ask to maybe perhaps to invest for here is to have a robust approach to how we engage our stakeholders. I see Lupea post a lot of stuff. I follow at individual level, and the network also follow. But sometimes they miss even to tag those important stakeholders, including the universities. When there's something that's happening at Lupea, all the universities in Kenya must know something is happening in Lupea. All the youth networks, they must know that something is happening in Lupea. And I think that is the best approach of engaging all the voices, and especially the youth, like the Gen Z. They usually trend on social media, and we have to tap into that energy. So as a young professional network, we have the platform to harness this critical energy to steer the industry to the next level. Maybe to finalize with that, I invite all young people and professionals to our summit in Abu Dhabi this September 28 to October 4th. That's the International Youth Nuclear Congress, which is a global conference that has brought us together since 2000 to date. So I believe that this conversation is not just today alone. This is a conversation that will take through generations and generations. And these are the platforms that we create to have knowledge transfer from one generation to another. Thank you.
Maybe I can ask my question and then you answer them at once.
Okay, but I believe yours will be, we've been told that yours will be the last question that's asked for the session.
Okay, thank you very much. Tom Juma. I have a background in mechanical engineering and I'm a politician. Yes, I was a candidate in the last election, but things turned upside down. I have a question on political interference and just an advice on how we can engage the community or the residents in Kilifi County. Kenya is a democratic country that is governed on a 5-year term basis and an extension of 1 term, that is 10, if the president is elected. Our country, Kenya, the president supports this move of having a nuclear power plant. My question on political interference is, should the next president coming next, after 10 years, be against nuclear power plant? How are you prepared to handle this? Are we going to shut down the plant? Are we going to ignore the investments that we have made in terms of training and advocacy? And my contribution on how to engage the community at Kilifi, politicians, they like credit and they like recognition. The moment you do your outreach program, without giving them the mic to speak before you, I'm assuring you that they will be against you. So just as an advice, as you continue to engage the residents in Kilifi, during your outreach programs, give politicians the mic and speak after them. Thank you.
Thank you for self-identifying as a politician. I appreciate that.
Good afternoon once more. For those who might not have been here, my name is Ezra Odhiambo, Chair of Nuclear Power and Energy Agency. I will listen to this conversation on stakeholder engagement very keenly. However, I would want to bring one key point to your attention, that every communication initiative costs money. And communication can be very expensive, particularly in this part of the world. You don't pay, you don't get coverage. Including even this summit, you might have to cost some money to get reasonable coverage. Therefore, to achieve good results, we have to engage our political stakeholders so that we get adequate financial allocation. When there is no budget, nothing happens within government. They want to get that very, very clear. Every initiative starts with money. No money, no budget, no communication. It's very, very important that you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Again, we'd just like to thank you again. We'll both be here. If you have any additional questions, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just for the aspiring politician, in Kilifi, let me just bring that. You were saying we give the mic to the politicians. The politicians have had the mic. We have had them on our engagements in the past, and we will continue to have them even in the future. So it's not that we are not engaging them. It's just that the interests are very interesting. You're a politician, you know. If you're a true one, you know the dynamics of politics and what it entails. We've had even politicians who are supporting, who are now saying otherwise. So, but the dynamics of politics dictate that. So it's not that we have not given them the mic. We've given them several mics, and they have amplified through them. Okay. I know we're supposed to be winding down now, and because time is coming to an end. I can see hands, but time.
Can I just give just one last comment, please? Very quickly, my name is Geoffrey Nyasimi and I come from the oil and gas space. And I'm very delighted to see Tanzanians very represented ably here. I'd kindly request if this platform can always be extrapolated into the larger East Africa platform, because we've had a very good success in terms of gas uptake by thermal users. So if at some point in our lobbying, in our communication, etc., we must identify industrial thermal users as very key stakeholders in this activity, and we must find a way on how to bring them on board, because in South countries mostly, policy will always follow capital, and communities will always follow finances. So if we give thermal users, rather industrial thermal users, this gospel probably of modular nuclear units, it can go a long way to ease our both financial burden and this thing to be taken up very quickly. In Songosongo, we have close to 47 trillion cubic feet of gas, and right now is maxed out because 90 to 95% is being consumed by industrial users. Please do remember East Africa as a whole when we put this thing into greater perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And just to inform you, just 2 months ago, there was the East Africa Power Pool Conference, where Tanzania was a very critical player, basically the whole region. So such initiatives are already taking place. But I think, Olga,
All right, thank you very much for your, please don't go away, of course, you have to pick your chocolates, and then you'll be getting, so please feel free.
I already had one, but I
That's okay, yeah, you can take another. And we're going to also present you with your speaker gifts. To do that, I'm going to invite Elizabeth Lenjo, who's a board member for NUPIA, to come give the presentation. So we're going to start with the Leah and Mr. Boyaka. Okay. And then we'll also have the chairman of NUPIA, Sensura Odiambo, also come for a speaker gift. were two others who were supposed to have been here, but they are not around to receive their speaker gifts, so it will be given to them. But yeah, thank you very much. So here we are at the end of today's sessions. What we're going to do now is going to move into the foyer, or in fact you can stay here and we're going to have some conversations amongst ourselves and network. But I need to make this clear again, this announcement, which has to do with the tags. If you haven't picked up your tags, they're available at the foyer, so you can have to pick it up, because tomorrow without the tag, you would not be allowed into the building. But yes, thank you all so much for being part of today's session. This is just day one, and tomorrow we're back again with more. My name is Israelai, and those of you who haven't had your chocolates, you get your chocolates tomorrow. They're more where this came from. But thank you very much. You all have a good evening. But yes, please engage and have some coffee and the snacks that are available. Thank you very much.
I was married 30 years. Enda pale. Enda ile kona. Hapo. Enda sasa. Hapo ni wapi? Hapo ni wapi?